I should have known something was wrong when they hired me on the spot. The Sunset Motel wasn't exactly the kind of place that had people lining up for jobs. It sat on a forgotten stretch of highway in rural Nevada, the kind of road that trucks use to avoid the interstate tolls. I needed the money for college, and night audit work paid better than flipping burgers. The job was simple. Sit at the front desk from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., check in late arrivals, and keep an eye on things. Most nights, nothing happened at all. The day manager, Frank, was a heavy-set guy with yellowed teeth who always seemed nervous. During my training, he showed me the guest registry and pointed to the rooms on the hand-drawn map behind the counter. Room 7 is special, he said, avoiding my eyes. When someone checks into room 7, just mark it down like normal. Don't ask questions. Don't go near that room during your shift. I figured he meant it was used for prostitutes or drug deals. Places like this always had at least one room for shady business. My first few weeks were quiet. I do homework, watch old movies on my laptop, and occasionally check in a trucker or traveling salesman. Then I started noticing the pattern. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork, someone would check into room 7. Always around 2 a.m. Always paying cash. The guy was thin, maybe in his 40s, with nervous eyes that never quite looked at me directly. He'd sign the registry as J. Smith and disappeared down the hallway. Here's the weird part. According to the books, J. Smith only stayed one night. But I worked every night, and I never saw him leave. Not once. After a month of this, I started paying closer attention. I'd walk past room 7 during my rounds, listening. Sometimes I heard the TV. Sometimes I heard movement. But in the morning, Frank would mark the room as vacant, ready for cleaning. One night, I decided to check the security cameras. The system was ancient, but it worked. I scrolled through weeks of footage, looking for J. Smith leaving room 7. He never did. In fact, the more I watched, the more impossible it became. The footage showed him checking in repeatedly, but never checking out. According to the tapes, there should have been dozens of J. Smiths in that room. I confronted Frank the next evening before my shift. What's really going on with room 7? Frank's face went pale. I told you not to ask questions. The guy never leaves, Frank. I've been watching for weeks. Was this place some kind of safe house? Frank looked around the empty lobby, then leaned close. Listen to me very carefully. Some people pay extra for privacy. Real privacy. The kind where nobody asks where they've been or where they're going. We provide a service. What kind of service? The kind that keeps bad people away from good people. You understand. I didn't understand, but Frank's tone made it clear the conversation was over. That night, I couldn't concentrate on my homework. Every sound from the hallway made me jump. Around 1 a.m., I heard footsteps. Slow, careful footsteps coming from the direction of room 7. I looked up from my textbook to see J. Smith standing at the counter. Up close, he looked worse than I remembered. His clothes were wrinkled like he'd been sleeping in them for weeks. His hair was greasy, and he smelled like stale cigarettes and fear. I need to make a phone call, he said. His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't used it in days. I pushed the desk phone toward him. He dialed a number and waited. It's me, he said into the phone. No, I'm still here. I can't leave yet. They're still looking. He paused, listening. I know it's been 3 months, but it's not safe. Frank says they were asking questions in town last week. 3 months. But the registry showed he'd only been here one night at a time, every 2 weeks. J. Smith hung up and looked at me directly for the first time. His eyes were desperate. You seem like a nice kid, he said. Smart. You go to college. I nodded. Good. Stay in school. Don't end up like me. He started to turn away, then stopped. And don't ask Frank too many questions. Some things are better left alone. After he disappeared back down the hallway, I sat in the quiet lobby, trying to piece it together. Frank was helping J. Smith hide from someone. The fake registry entries were to throw off anyone who came looking. But who was J. Smith hiding from? And what had he done? The next morning, I decided to quit. I left a note for Frank saying I was focusing on school and wouldn't be back. 2 days later, I saw the news report on TV. Police had found a body in the desert outside town. A man in his 40s, identified as James Smithson. He'd been wanted for questioning in connection with the disappearance of his ex-wife and daughter in California. The news anchor said Smithson had been dead for at least a week, but that was impossible. I just talked to him 3 days ago. I drove back to the Sunset Motel that afternoon. Frank was at the front desk, looking more nervous than usual. "I thought you quit," he said. "Is room 7 empty?" Frank's eyes darted away. "Has been for a while now." "Can I see it? Why would you want to do that?" I didn't answer. I walked down the hallway to room 7 and tried the handle. It was unlocked. The room was clean, but it smelled like stale cigarettes and fear. On the nightstand was a note written in shaky handwriting. "They found me. Tell my sister I'm sorry." I never went back to the Sunset Motel after that. Sometimes I wonder if Frank is still there, still providing his special service to people who need to disappear. And sometimes, late at night when I'm studying, I wonder who else might be hiding in room 7, waiting for a safety that will never come. The Pine Valley Motel looked exactly like every other cheap roadside motel I'd stayed in during my years as a traveling salesman. Faded blue paint, flickering neon sign, and a parking lot full of potholes. But it was clean enough, and more importantly, it was cheap. The desk clerk was a tired-looking woman in her 60s who barely looked up when I checked in. "Room 12, she said, sliding a key across the counter. "Ice machine's broken, but there's a vending machine around back." Room 12 was what I expected. 2 double beds, a TV that got 3 channels clearly, and carpet that had seen better decades. But there was something I hadn't noticed when booking, a connecting door to the room next door. The door was painted the same bland beige as the walls, with 2 deadbolt locks on my side. A sign hung from the handle, "Do not unlock, connecting room sealed." I thought it was odd, but didn't pay much attention. I had calls to make and orders to process. The connecting door was just another piece of cheap motel furniture. Around 11 p.m., I was reviewing my sales figures when I heard sound from the other side of the connecting door. A TV was on, playing what sounded like an old sitcom. I could hear the laugh track and cheerful music. Then I heard voices, a man, a woman, and what sounded like children. "Tommy, turn that down. Your sister's trying to sleep," the woman's voice said. It's not that loud," a boy replied. I smiled. Just a normal family staying next door. The walls in these old motels were paper thin. But as I listened more closely, something fell off. The TV show sounded really old, like something from the 1970s or 80s. And there was a strange quality to the voices, like they were coming from far away. I went to bed around midnight, but the sounds continued. Not loud enough to complain about, but persistent. The family seemed to be having a late dinner, talking and laughing. I heard dishes clinking and chairs scraping across the floor. The next morning at checkout, I mentioned it to the desk clerk. "Family next door in room 11 was up pretty late," I said casually. She looked at me strangely. "Room 11? There's nobody in room 11. I heard them all night. Kids, parents, TV." The woman's face went pale. She looked around the empty lobby, then leaned forward. "Sir, room 11 has been sealed since 1983. There was an accident, a gas leak. A family of 4 died in their sleep." A chill ran down my spine. "That's impossible. I heard them talking, laughing." "You're not the first person to mention sounds from that room. We had to stop renting room 12 for a while because guests kept complaining." I wanted to argue, to insist I knew what I'd heard, but the look on her face stopped me. She believed what she was saying. I should have left it at that. Should have driven to my next appointment and forgotten about the Pine Valley Motel. But I couldn't stop thinking about those voices. They had sounded so real, so alive. 3 weeks later, my route brought me back through the same area. Against my better judgment, I booked room 12 again. This time, I was listening for sounds. They started around 10 p.m. "Daddy, will you read us a story?" A little girl's voice, sweet and sleepy. "Of course, princess. What story do you want?" I pressed my ear to the connecting door. The voices were clearer now, like the family was sitting right on the other side. "The one about the princess and the dragon," the girl said. "That's a good one," the father replied. For the next hour, I listened to him read a bedtime story. His voice was warm and patient, exactly how a father should sound. When he finished, I heard the children being tucked into bed. "Good night, Tommy. Good night, Sarah. Sweet dreams." Good night, Daddy. Good night, Mommy. Then silence. Around 2 a.m., I was woken by different sounds. Urgent whispers. The parents were having a hushed conversation. Do you smell that? The woman asked. Yeah, something's wrong with the heater. Should we call the front desk? It's the middle of the night. I'll check it in the morning. I don't feel good, honey. My head hurts. Mine too. Must be the altitude. Try to sleep. My blood went cold. I knew how this story ended. They were describing the gas leak that killed them. Somehow, I was hearing their final night playing out over and over. But then something changed. The father's voice became urgent. Wait, someone's listening. Someone's on the other side of the door. The room went silent. Then, slowly, deliberately, someone knocked on the connecting door. 3 soft knocks. I jumped back from the door, my heart pounding. The knocking came again. 3 knocks, then a pause. 3 more knocks. Hello, the father's voice called. Can you hear us? I didn't answer. I couldn't answer. Please, the woman's voice now, desperate. If you can hear us, you have to help. Something's wrong. We can't breathe properly. Our children. The knocking became frantic. Both deadbolts on my side started to rattle as someone tried the handle from the other side. Please, the father shouted. Call for help. Something's wrong with the gas. We can't get out. I stumbled backward, grabbing my clothes and shoving them into my suitcase. The rattling grew louder. The deadbolts were shaking so hard I thought they might break. Don't leave us, the woman screamed. Don't let us die again. I ran from the room, not bothering to pack everything. I threw my suitcase in my car and drove away as fast as I could, the woman's screams echoing in my ears. The next morning, I called the motel from 2 towns over. This is going to sound crazy, I told the desk clerk, but I think the family in room 11 is trying to change what happened to them. They know they're going to die, and they're looking for someone to save them. There was a long pause. Sir, she said finally, you're the 3rd person to call me with that exact story this year. The problem is, even if someone wanted to help them, room 11 is sealed with concrete. Has been for 40 years. There's no way in. I never drove that route again. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear those voices. A father reading bedtime stories. A mother tucking her children in. And then, always, the desperate knocking and the pleas for help that can never come. The Restwell Motel appeared in my headlights like a mirage after 12 hours of driving. I was moving from Portland to Miami, and I'd pushed myself too far without a break. The place looked clean enough, with a neon sign that actually worked and a parking lot that wasn't full of potholes. The desk clerk was a pleasant older man who smiled when I walked in. Just need a room for one night, I said. I'm driving cross-country. Of course. Room 15 is perfect for you. Very quiet, very comfortable. He handed me an old-fashioned metal key and pointed down a hallway lined with matching blue doors. Breakfast is from 6 to 10. Checkout is at 11. Have a wonderful stay. Room 15 was better than I expected. The bed was comfortable, the bathroom was clean, and the TV got plenty of channels. I unpacked my overnight bag, took a hot shower, and fell asleep watching late-night talk shows. I woke up feeling refreshed and ready for the final stretch to Miami. After breakfast, I loaded my car and went to the front desk to check out. The same clerk was there, still smiling. Good morning. How can I help you? I'd like to check out of room 15. He looked at his computer screen, frowning slightly. I'm sorry, but it looks like you just checked in. You've paid for a full week. No, that's not right. I checked in last night for one night only. He turned the computer screen toward me. According to his system, I had checked in this morning and paid for 7 nights in advance. There must be some mistake, I said. I just need to check out and get back on the road. Sir, you paid cash for a week. If you want to leave early, that's fine, but we can't refund cash payments. This was getting ridiculous. I pulled out my phone to show him my credit card statement, but my phone was dead. The battery had been at 50% when I went to sleep. Can I see your receipt? He asked. I checked my wallet. There was a receipt from the motel, dated this morning, showing payment for 7 nights. But that was impossible. I remembered paying for one night, and I definitely hadn't paid this morning. Confused and frustrated, I went back to my room to find my phone charger. But when I opened the door to room 15, I stopped cold. My overnight bag was unpacked. My clothes were hanging in the closet. My toiletries were arranged on the bathroom counter. Everything was set up like I was planning to stay for days. I specifically remembered leaving everything packed, ready to load into my car. My hands shaking, I repacked my bag and went back to the front desk. "Look, I don't care about the refund. I just want to leave." The clerk nodded sympathetically. "Of course, sir. Have a safe trip." I loaded my car and drove toward the highway. But instead of reaching the on-ramp, I found myself back in a motel parking lot. I hadn't made any turns. I'd driven straight, but somehow I was back where I started. I tried again, this time paying careful attention to every turn. Straight out of the parking lot, left at the stop sign, straight for 2 miles to the highway entrance. But again, I ended up back at the Restwell Motel. Panic started to set in. I sat in my car, trying to think rationally. Maybe I was more tired than I realized. Maybe I was getting confused. I went back to the desk clerk. "I'm having trouble finding the highway," I said, trying to sound calm. "Oh, it's very simple," he said, drawing a map on a piece of paper. Left out of the parking lot, straight for 2 miles, then right onto the interstate ramp. He'd said left before. Now he was saying right. "Are you sure? You told me left earlier." He looked puzzled. "No, sir, I said right. I've been giving those directions for 20 years. I took the map and tried again. Left out of the parking lot, straight for 2 miles, right onto the ramp. But when I made the right turn, I found myself driving through a residential neighborhood I'd never seen before. I drove for 10 minutes, getting more and more lost, until I turned a corner and saw the Restwell Motel sign ahead of me. This time, when I parked, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. There were other people in the parking lot who looked just as confused as I felt. A middle-aged woman was standing next to a sedan loaded with boxes, staring at a map and shaking her head. A young man was talking angrily on his phone. "I don't know where I am. I've been trying to leave this place all day." I approached the woman. "Excuse me, are you having trouble leaving?" She looked at me with desperate eyes. "I checked in here 3 days ago. Or at least, I think it was 3 days ago. Every morning I pack my car to leave, and every night I'm back in my room. I can't remember how I got back. What room are you in?" "Room 12. You?" "Room 15. We looked at each other, both thinking the same thing. We want to find the young man with the phone. "Room 8, he said when we asked. "I've been here a week. At least, I think it's been a week. Time feels weird here, and I can't reach anyone outside this place. My phone works, but every number I call just rings forever." We compared stories. All of us had been traveling alone. All of us had paid cash. All of us remembered checking in for just one night, but our receipts showed longer stays. "There's something else," the woman said quietly. "Have you noticed that you're never really hungry? And you don't need to use the bathroom very often? It's like our bodies don't work quite right here." She was right. I hadn't eaten since the breakfast that morning, but I felt fine. I hadn't needed the bathroom since checking in, which was impossible after all the coffee I'd had on the road. We decided to try leaving together. Maybe whatever was keeping us here couldn't hold 3 people at once. We got in our cars and formed a small convoy. Left out of the parking lot, straight for 2 miles, right at the interstate ramp. This time, we reached what looked like the highway. There were road signs, other cars, everything normal. For a moment, I thought we'd made it. I was following the woman's sedan, and the young man was behind me. We drove for what felt like hours, passing familiar-looking exits and rest stops. Then I noticed something wrong. We kept passing the same billboard. "Visit Scenic Nevada, the Silver State." Every few miles, the exact same billboard. I looked at my odometer. We'd driven 200 miles, but we kept seeing the same landmarks over and over. In my rearview mirror, I saw the young man frantically honking his horn and pointing ahead. I looked forward and saw it. The Restwell Motel sign, appearing through the darkness ahead of us. We were back. When I woke up the next morning, or what felt like the next morning, I was in room 15. My car was in the parking lot, fully loaded. My receipt showed I'd paid for another week. At the front desk, the clerk smiled at me like always. "Good morning. How can I help you? How long have I been here?" "You just checked in, sir. Is there a problem with your room?" I've stopped trying to leave. The woman in room 12 is still here, though she doesn't remember our conversation from yesterday. The young man in room 8 thinks he just arrived this morning. I'm writing this down so I don't forget like they did. Maybe someone will find this note and understand what happened to us. The Restwell Motel isn't a place you check out of. It's a place for people who are between destinations, people who have nowhere else to go. And once you're here, it makes sure you always have a reason to stay. I just checked my receipt again. It says I've paid for another month. Checkout time never comes.